Yeah, yeah. So it could be becoming aware of it and what I'm doing to recover or to improve upon that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that'd be good. Yeah. Yeah, because I do know that when I talk like this, sometimes I tend to go on many tangents and scatter. So, okay. Right. Yeah. Right, right. Now, wait, let me just ask you a question because a lot of people use the word narcissist very, they say he's a narcissist, he's a narcissist. Was the people, your brother, was he diagnosed as a narcissist or just that's the word? Okay, okay. Oh, okay. Right. From your brother? Okay. Oh, right, right. Oh, right, right, right. Uh huh. Mm. Oh, wow. Okay, 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 okay. Mm. Yeah, borderline. Yeah. Mm. I mean, I don't know if I should talk about that because I'm seeing a psychologist now, and that's kind of what we're discovering for me. I guess if you call it a diagnosis, for me, it's comorbid borderline with vigilant narcissism. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but we're still trying to. The psychologist is guiding me. We're trying to see what is what. But I could talk about what made me finally get reference to a psychologist. I could talk about everything from 2014 to 2015 when I first started to try to seek therapy. Um, it's neither or. It's basically I've been getting into a whole bunch of pattern relationships with people, and what triggered it was I got into a what the final thing was I got into I bought four businesses, and I had to get out of them. They were doing badly. It was all regarding how like I wasn't able to assert myself in negotiation processes. Like you would think like people who, when people are seeking fame and then once they reach it, it's like it's not solving their problems. I could kind of make that relation, and so then I got a lot of suicide ideation again, and so I was seeing another therapist, and she said, you gotta go to emergency, if you're suicidal, and then here in Canada in Montreal, and the psychologist, it's paid for by Medicare, which is our social insurance plan. So, oh, okay. Why did I think American? Okay. Huh? Oh, okay. There we go. What'd you study? Okay. All right. In the West. Sorry. Okay. Mm. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm very open. Well, I'm open. I mean, that's my whole modus operandi, is to be able to be as I guess the trendy word is authentic. Because the problem with me is I give an image that isn't right, and one of the reasons is I don't know who I am, and so I attract people who think of me as one way because of the way I look, which is pretty much opposite to the way I am, and it always has, yeah, since grade school, and yeah. So now it's like I want people to know. Like people look at me, they think, and people have said it many times. Oh, you're fine. They think I'm this strong guy who's got it together and successful, and it's like, no. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I mean, they don't. They go by the visual. It's like, I don't look like a victim. That's, you know what I mean. Kind of like a Terry Crews type thing. You know. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very well, Chad. Thank you. Okay, so where to start? Yes, I was brought up in an abusive childhood household. I was an only child. Actually, I do have a half sister who's about 15 years older than me, but when I was 13, she had called my house when my father was there, and he picked up in front of me and he disowned her. He said, "Don't ever call back here again." So for years he was saying that she was this gold digger, just after money and whatever. It was a daughter from his first marriage when he immigrated to Canada. He was from, it's now called Belarus. He was in at the time of the Holocaust. So there was a lot of trauma there. I could understand it after the fact. But finding out later that, both my parents were like, yeah, she's a gold digger. She's living in Hampstead, which is a rich area here in Montreal. And she's gold digging or whatever. So they kind of made me believe that and not to ever talk to her or whatever. And decades after the fact, I found out my mother never met her. My father never even met her, because I ended up meeting her once 11 years ago, and she never met him. He had left his first wife before she was born, before his daughter was born, and she had told me that her mother had to change her name. I have a very particular last name, and she had to change it because she was afraid that my father was going to murder her. So it was pretty intense, and the irony of it is that my father reminds me of Hitler. He's this short, skinny, effeminate guy, but he's very diabolical. But when he has this persona of being very polite, more than just Canadian polite, but I mean really polite, but at home very controlling and very violent, up to the point when I was 13, and then the gym was my best friend. I became very big and muscular, and so my mother was also very big, and so it fueled his little playing the victim type personality. My father would call the police, even after abusing me, he would call the police and say that I was the instigator. And I learned not to talk. I never talked when the police was there. My mother was very verbally abusive to the police. It was a whole, can I swear, shit show? Yeah, but it was kind of a pattern, week on week, for decades. And I learned not to talk. My father once tried to get me into a social worker to help me. And my father would always say that my mother is mentally unstable. So these are things that I believed. I still believe it, because my mother she had a stroke when she had me. So I saw my mother as having a mentality of a 6-year-old. But what I didn't comprehend until after the fact, both my parents died a few years ago. They were old. My father was 98. Is that my father was really, like, the whole, PTSD of being in the Holocaust, is just what it does to you. And I see some of my his traits in me, which I'm not too proud of. But yeah, so it was like that for years, that the police would come. Neighbors would be like, "Why are the police at your house all the time?" My father was known for, when I was younger, for running after neighbors who would come close to the place, to our house, with a rake. He was known as very protective, very, I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't say violent, but he made it so that no one. Yeah, I don't even think it was temper, because the thing is, all the violent stuff was in the house. But when you leave the house, it's a dual personalities. When you leave the house, nothing is said. You're nice. Everything's nice. And my father had to show that he had control of me, that everything was nice. Like, leave it to Beaver, you know what I mean? But when someone came close to the, like, tried to step on the lawn or whatever, he would come after with a rake. So it's kind of like a control thing, you know, not a violent temper thing, but a control thing. And a lot of times, I was brought up overprotective, which is completely ironic considering he was the one abusing me, you know. But yeah, yeah. Mhm. No, actually, he wasn't angry to the. No, no, no. There's what he would does. Like, I was so overprotected that my father would go and take care of things. He would save me all the time. Like, I remember one time in summer camp, this girl was bothering me. I came home. He went over to the camp counselors and the head, and they were like, "This man's fucking crazy." The way he went off on them. He that's what I learned. Like, I learned to not I didn't learn. First of all, violence is all I grew up with. So I didn't learn how to mediate taking care of situations, like, before exploding. So it'd be like I would take care of things like that. Like, someone eventually, you know, would bother me after a while. I remember once I was on the diving team, and one of the younger teammates would be like, you know, make fun of me, say, "Oh, he's gay, he's gay, he's gay," and all that stuff, and for months, and I'm very patient. And then one time I just couldn't take it anymore, and I just lifted him up by his feet and I put his head in the toilet bowl, and that was it. And he never did anything again. So I didn't, and then I got validation from my coach saying he deserved it. So it's like, this is what I learned, that, you know, you be big and violent and take care of it, and then no one will touch you again. And that's not an adult way to do things, but that's how my father took care of things. And he wasn't. um, no, it didn't. It didn't scare me at the time. I wasn't aware. Um, I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Oh, no. I got it now. Because I guess genetics, that I became bigger and more muscular, and just something I saw in the incongruence of my parents' upbringing in me. Like, they would set rules, and then they wouldn't go through with it. Like, my father, it wasn't about rules with my father. It was all like emotional. Like, for years he would say, "You can't have a pet in here. You can't bring a cat," and so I became very rebellious. I brought a cat in, and then he started taking care of it, and then I said, "Okay, fuck it, you could have it." You know, it was that kind of dynamic. But from grade 5, I started getting more and more rebellious at home. Like, I was really, it became almost like a match after a while, especially since I was getting bigger and bigger. But 13 was the last time he put his hands on me. And I had to go to the hospital, children's hospital. And one time I went to a group home. Like, he would send me to these places to teach me a lesson. And he'd be like, "Oh, you're the one who's violent on me. You're the one who's violent on me." You know? And so I thought that. And then even when I was 21, there was never any more violence, but it was always a game of who could, like, if I didn't do anything that my father appreciated, he would call the cops. So then I would unplug the phone, and he'd go out and find another way to call the cops. So then he created a relationship with a police officer, and because I don't say my situation, he had me arrested for misdemeanor assault, even though I didn't do anything. But it's because I didn't say anything, and this is what I learned: not to speak my mind, not to say anything. That was my fate. You know what I mean? That I would allow myself to get into these situations that he would do. You know, so I didn't know boundaries. I didn't have any self-worth. On the same thing of self-worth, when I was 13 or 14, the one time that someone was allowed in the house, because he wouldn't allow anyone in the house. I wasn't allowed to have friends at the house. My parents slept in separate bedrooms. So I learned to be very isolated and not learn how to make friends. And so I had a scoutmaster. At the time, he basically he molested me, but I didn't think anything of it because I thought, knowing now, I think he replaced my father. He was the only one treating me like a father. He was grooming me for like well over a year because his adopted son was on the same swim team as me. So every weekend he would come to see, I guess, his adopted son, but he would come and wash my back in the showers. It was a group shower, but it didn't bother me. I was like, okay, I guess I had a father. I had someone who cared about me. Until one time we went to this camp